On the first day of Season 3, we managed to make it all the way up until level 80 with our Fireball Meteor build. So if you guys have been following the level 1 to 50 guide, this is going to be a continuation of that. This is going to be level 50 up to level 80. So I'm going to break down everything that you need to be doing in those level frames and roughly the gear that you're going to be looking for, skills you're going to be changing around. We only changed a couple things for the most part. Essentially, right now at level 80, I got rid of Arc Lash as like a basic attack just because we don't need it anymore. And we're going to be using another skill, so we're going to be using Flame Shield now. So there's a couple of things that changed, so we're going to go over all of that. I'm going to go over the Construct Stones and just overall your priorities in leveling and gearing in that time. We streamed basically this entire process yesterday over on Twitch, so if that's something that you're interested in seeing in the future or have any questions for me regarding the build or anything sorcerer related, make sure you head on over there. Hopefully I'll see you guys at the next stream. Also consider subscribing for more Diablo 4 content. We're going to have the level 100 version of this build here very soon, and I wanted to make some builds on some other characters, so if that sounds interesting to you, hopefully I'll see you back here on the channel as well. But let's go ahead and jump into this level 50 to 80 Fireball Meteor Sorcerer guide. Since you just hit level 50, what your next goal is going to be is farming your way up so you can do the World Tier 4 Capstone Dungeon. So from level 50 to anywhere in that 55 to 60 range, you're just going to be farming Nightmare Dungeons. Domain Tunnels isn't really going to be helping you out all that much in terms of XP at that point, just because you're going to be leveled out in levels with the enemies. So farm some Nightmare Dungeons up until that 55-60 range when you feel like you have decent enough gear to take on the World Tier 4 Capstone Dungeon. I think we did it at like 56 or 57 or so. And once you're in a World Tier 4, go back into Domain Tunnels. You're basically going to be there until level 70 after that. You're just going to be getting to 60 as fast as possible so you can equip those Ancestrals. Once you're at 70, farm some Nightmare Dungeons until you're about level 75. Then once you're level 75 to 80, that's where you're going to be farming the gear that we're going to be going over in a little bit in the video. I'm currently wearing some uniques that I was able to get from some of those bosses like Varshawn and Greg. So I'll go over all of that here in just a minute, but that's roughly the level orders and your priorities in terms of what you want to be doing at those level ranges. Looking at our skills, not too much has changed since that level 50 version. We moved around a couple points here and there. Basically, I'm not using Arc Lash anymore. I really don't need it. I stopped using this at around level 70 or so, but I also had really bad luck. I did not have good rings or any sort of aspects to throw on those rings for our resources. If you guys can get your prodigies and incendiaries, which are both codex rolls, but if you do happen to find a better version and rings to slot them on, you can get rid of this much earlier and just throw Meteor in its spot on the hotbar. Meteor is going to be really nice for your bossing just because you can knock them down quicker, and it's going to be dealing really good damage, especially if you get to the meteorite aspect. We'll go over that aspect in a little bit. But once you're able to get rid of Arc Lash, go ahead and just throw any 2 points anywhere else, or just keep them in Arc Lash. Really doesn't matter. You're not going to be using anything in the basic tree. And then I do just have 1 point in Potent Warding right now, just because I had an extra point at the end of all this. So I found like this was the best spot for that one extra point. But feel free to move this one wherever you want. Otherwise, the only reason we had Hydra in the level 1 to 50 build was to make things burning. Now that we have Meteor slotted on our setup and just getting more lucky hit chance for more passive meteors to be falling, we have plenty of burning, and we have our construct to apply some burning. On top of all that, we do not need Hydra anymore, so you can spec out of that once you're level 50. I basically got rid of that right away, and then I threw on Ice Blades for a little bit just for applying more vulnerable. But if you do just want to go into Flame Shield once you're getting into a lot of the Vault Nightmare Dungeons and all those traps, the Flame Shield helps out a ton. So around level 70, I would go Flame Shield, but from level 50 to 70, you can keep on Ice Blades for that vulnerable. But if you do just want the survivability, go ahead and throw Flame Shield on. Otherwise, everything else is exactly the same over here. All of the precision magics, all the defensive skills there. Glass Cannon. Meteor, we're going to be grabbing its augments now, so we can have it immobilize enemies and have it spawn in more meteors if we hit 3 or more enemies, which is really nice. Otherwise, still grabbing all of our Devouring Blaze, Inner Flames, Crippling Flames, maxing out our ultimates. We're keeping Fiery Surge for the time being, and then also Esu's Ferocity. So not too much has changed. Fireball and Meteor are still our enchantments with this setup. Taking a look at our gear, I currently have uniques equipped, so I'm going to give you guys the before uniques like aspects that you're going to be running in those slots. But there is another one, and that is the Staff of Endless Rage. I currently only have this equipped because it was a really high item power and it still benefits the build in some way. But in a perfect world, this is going to be gone. I'm going to be running a wand and an offhand. And then I'll tell you guys what the aspects I'm going to be running down here, because it's going to involve swapping some of the things I have on my amulets and my ring. But the main unique you guys are going to be farming for first. So once you hit that like level 75 or as early as you can, that you can kill Greg, you're going to want to be going to get the Gloves of the Illuminator. It's going to help out your clear speeds and damage so much. The difference was night and day before and after I got these, so that's going to be the #1 unique on your list right now, just because our Meteor helmet is still, I can probably get it right now at level 83, but once you're level 75, you're going to have to go a little bit longer before you can go kill the Beast in Ice, unless you're going to get carried. But then from there, you're going to want to go kill Varshan, because he can give you the Talwar Shaz. This is always like a best in slot item for the Sorcerer, and then also Varshan can drop the Esu's Heirloom. Our damage is going to be way better when we crit, so we're really going to need these to boost up our crit chance. And the reason that is because we're going to be running the crit damage of Meteor and Fireball is increased, and this is going to be doubled against healthy enemies. So right now I currently have this on my ring. This is where I said I wanted the Staff of Endless Rage, not on the setup. So ideally this would go on one of the weapons, and then what's on my amulet right now, the Storm Swell, this would go on the other weapon. And then here on my amulet would be the meteors, can spawn the meteorites that deal a percentage of the meteor's damage. That's going to end up going on my amulets, but I've only ever found one of those aspects so far. So I don't know if they're just incredibly rare or I'm extremely unlucky. Hopefully you guys have better luck than I do in terms of that, but that's going to be the ideal setup for our offensive aspects there. And then once you get to those slotted in place, this ring slot next to the Talwar Shaz, this can end up being the Prodigy's aspect. Now, before you guys get those uniques on the gloves is where I'd normally run the conceited aspect, so damage while you have a barrier. On the boots, you can run Ghostwalker's aspect. That's really helpful, especially when you still have Arc Lash on your bar. Being able to just move through the enemies and get the guaranteed attacks off is really nice. A lot of times they can block you and prevent you from casting any of your attacks, mainly Arc Lash. And then on this ring, just run whatever other resource thing. So if, say, on this ring you had Prodigies, in this one you could run Incendiaries. Just whatever of the two resource things that you're not running, put it in this slot. But ideally, Incendiary is going to be the one you replace for the Talwar Shaz, so just keep that in mind. And then for our actual armor and those aspects, Disobedience, there is the new flat armor one, but it increases the cooldown of your evade. That one is really good, but since we need to dodge so much with Esu's Heirloom, it ends up not really working out in that combo. So I just run Disobedience. It's still really good, and I just have a Codex roll right now. And you can definitely match the flat one if you get the % total armors on your gear. So my pants, my chest, and my helmet all have total armor. So I'm able to just get 7,100 standing here right now. And then we obviously get the Disobedience on top of that once I stack it up. Otherwise, on my chest piece, I'm currently running the less damage from crowd control and vulnerable. Our construct is going to be making a lot of enemies vulnerable for us. If you guys are still running Ice Blaze, that helps. Also, our immobilize is going to be going crazy, so that's even more you can get going in terms of DR. There's not really a ton of great options. You can swap this one out for the Frost Blitz aspect, so you can get that second charge of Frost Nova. Either of those two is going to be your best bet. And then on the helmet, I currently have Shared Misery, so the chance of the crowd control spreading to nearby enemies. This just happened to roll on this helmet, which is working out for me right now. This is working pretty well, especially with all of the immobilize we're doing, so it just makes like the whole packs freeze. But this one you can swap out for anything else of your liking. Then for the affixes that you're going to be looking for on these armors, just any sort of resistances to fill in gaps. Obviously, DRs are always going to be very powerful. The total armors, my pants ended up being pretty good. On the gloves, before you get Luminaires, ranks of Fireball, and on the pants you're going to want ranks of Meteor. I currently don't have that, but my Meteors still even do a lot of damage. Once we get the helmet, we can end up getting 8 ranks of Meteor, which is going to be crazy. in terms of our damage output. So make sure you are looking for pants with the ranks 2 meteor on it. But let's go ahead and go over our construct right now. With the constructs, I've played around with a bunch of different combinations in terms of the governing stones and the tuning stones. And I've ended up settling on Firefly and Focus Fire. Firefly, I'm not 100% sold on. Focus Fire is the one that I highly recommend. It's going to be the very first thing you're going to want to equip here on your construct once you unlock it. It does really good damage. It hits a lot of things and can provide a lot of utility for us too. So when you combine Focus Fire with Burning Support, you can get Devouring Blaze on a lot of enemies. And then how you actually get this on more enemies is with Arcing Support. And then you combine all of that with Breaking Support with the chance to apply Vulnerable and getting rid of the barriers. It's going to make enemies a lot weaker for you, and it's just overall going to hit everything on the screen eventually. Right now, it's not obviously hitting too much because we have like level 2 stones, but once we get closer to level 100 and we level up these stones, this is going to be a fantastic combination. And then I do like Firefly just because it is a pretty decent damaging option. I have played around with things like Impale or the Lightning Bolts. Either of those work pretty well if you don't have those unlocked yet. I used Lightning Bolt for quite a while just because it has a low quick attack speed, and then also Impale is right there with it at the 1.5 seconds. But one thing I noticed is since Focus Fire is going to be going out a lot, it can't do both attacks at the same time. So even though that this is at a 1.5 second speed, it's really only doing that every 3 seconds or so once the Focus Fire is done. So I found just having two things around the same attack speed, it works pretty well. And the Firefly, it just shoots it, and then the Firefly can go do its own thing, and it can go right back into Focus Fire. But with Firefly, here is where I combine it with Resource Support, so we can get a little bit more sustain on our fireballs. Right now, this isn't doing a ton, but once we get some more resource generation and level this up, it's going to be very powerful. Also, we're going to be running Efficiency Support, so we can get that increased crit chance. Like I said, when we were going over our aspects, when we crit, that's when you're really going to be doing your big damage, so you're going to be critting as much as possible. And then one thing I found with Piercing Support and the Firefly is it works pretty darn well. So the Firefly can already hit many things because it is an explosion, but then once it pierces, you can get like 2 of them going. It's going to actually duplicate. So right here, you can see 2 Fireflies go out, and they're both going to explode next to those, and it's just going to duplicate all of them right there. And it ends up being a really good combo, and I found it works a little bit better than the multi-shot support. Maybe once we level these up, multi-shot will be better, but for the time being, I really like Piercing Support as our final option here on Firefly. Unfortunately, with Tal Rashaz, I have tried things like the extra elements, and it did not seem to stack them. Obviously, right now, it's attacking with fire, and I don't get any Tal Rashaz, but if I do this, boom, here's a Tal Rashaz right there. Second stack, and so on. So that's why I have not bothered with any sort of elements on there, because it does not seem to work with our Tal Rashaz at the moment. And then finally, for our Paragon board, this is far from a perfect option, but it has been working fairly well for just like leveling up. I'm going to redo this whole thing later on once we get to a bit higher level, and I decide exactly what I want on the setup once we get all of our gear. But in the starting board, you're just going to be grabbing the non-physical damage. And in this first one, I end up putting Elementalist to boost our non-physical damage here in these guys, and our resistance to all elements too on this other side. So that's why I like it in there. And then I fill out the 40 intelligence for the stacking damage. Otherwise, we're going to be going into our Searing Heat board after that. This way we can start stacking up fire damage and getting that 30% bonus direct damage, which is really nice. We can grab the fire damage down here to boost that up. And then we're going to go grab its glyph at the top, and this is where I put Adept for our meteors to have that little bit bigger radius. That's going to help them out hit more things, just because they do take a long time to fall. Having that bigger radius makes them a lot more consistent, so that's why we're going to be filling up the 40 intelligence, and we get a lot of resistance in the process. From there, I went into the Enchant Master board, but I'm not actually grabbing that. We're just going to be going into the glyph area over here. And I just have Destruction in here right now. Unfortunately, I do not have it level 15 yet to max it out. But then we can grab our more non-physical damages over here and over here just to boost up our Searing Heat up to 30. And to prepare us for our next board, which is going to end up being Frigid Fates. This is going to be the next one we go into. All of these non-physical damages are going to be boosting our cold damage, which in turn is increasing our damage to vulnerable, not just with cold, just damage to vulnerable. So right now I currently have that 20, but at the end of this build, it's going to end up being 30. And then we can grab its glyph slot down here. And here's where I have territorial for the time being. But there's going to be a lot of other things that we mess around with, and I just got to be leveling up these glyphs, and it's going to be a lot quicker as I move up the nightmare dungeons. But currently at level 80, that is what my Paragon board is looking like, and it's serving me pretty well at the moment. But that is everything you need to know for your Fireball Meteor Sorc to get it from level 50 to level 80. I found this leveling process to be incredibly smooth, and I've had terrible luck with gear, and it still went very well for me. So if you guys even have just normal luck, you're going to be good to go. You're going to be flying through everything. The damage this can put out is crazy, and once you start getting your hands on those uniques at level 75 or so, you're going to be just blasting through everything. So I'm really excited to see the potential of this build. And once again, if that is something that you're interested in seeing here within the next few days, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Otherwise, hopefully I'll see you over on Twitch. We stream almost every single day. But anyways, I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next video. See ya.